Well, greetings. Welcome back to our series on how to incorporate our prayer life into dealing with the day-to-day stresses that we feel in the world. Today, I'd like to talk about something that we as Protestants, at least in the more evangelical traditions of Protestantism, don't focus on, and that is prayer postures. Yes, I get that sometimes, particularly in certain praise and worship venues, posture is becoming somewhat in vogue, but we don't focus on it. We don't think about it too often. And I wanted to take some time and talk about what is our prayer posture. What are we doing with our bodies as we pray? The idea of prayer in the Protestant tradition is connected to this dualism that says we are inherently spirits and somewhat disconnected from our bodies. And because most Protestants implicitly think like that, they are hesitant to think about their bodies as incarnate tools of prayer. And yet that's precisely what our bodies are. We've talked about touch last week and how we can use physical contact with something to connect us to God. Well, we are incarnated beings. Our body is part of us. And so we have to use our body in our prayer life. We talked about it a little bit in palms down, palms up prayer. We talked about it a little bit. We've kind of skirted a little bit last week in tactile prayer, but we skirted around this issue. And the reality is our bodies can be used in any number of ways to connect us to prayer. It can be as simple as going for a walk and turning that walk into a prayer walk. There are multiple ways to do this. The simplest one is to walk the community and pray for the people that you pass or the houses that you pass. This, A, gives you physical exercise. B, it connects your physical exercise to God. And C, it helps you to see the people around you and to intentionally pray for them. You can also pray and count off steps. So you might say to yourself, I am going to pray through this issue for 100 paces. And you mark off 100 paces on your walk, or 200 paces, and you take one day and you count 100 paces or 200 paces or 250 paces or whatever that is. And you notice the spot. You notice the landscape or whatever, a marker right there. And so from that day onward, whenever you take a walk, you pray for an issue to that spot. And then you change issues. And it's a sign of completion. I have completed the prayer. And now I can give it over to God. Prayer walks can be very helpful, especially if they are done in serene settings where you can dedicate your mind to God. Another element or another aspect of physical posturing can be how you sit or compose your body during prayer. I think it was A.W. Tozer, but I'm not sure. I learned it from a professor of mine named Terry Wardle, that a posture of prayer can be something as simple as how are you seated and making sure that you are seated comfortably, but not so comfortably as to be a distraction. In other words, you want to have a posture like you would for having a conversation with a business conversation with someone. You can also do a more penitent posture like A.W. Tozer, who used to, I think it was Tozer anyway, who used to lay down on the floor, face down, in a cruciform position. That is, arms outstretched to the sides, feet straight down as if on a cross. And he would pray like this noticing the feel and how he felt as he laid on the floor prostrate before God. This is something good to do if you have other elements that you want to add into your prayer life, such as praying before the cross or praying in a certain direction, say eastward. This element is very helpful to focus in your mind on what you are doing, because your entire body, not just your mind, your entire body is focused in on the prayer. So that can be useful. Intentionally standing or intentionally kneeling in a specific posture can help you focus your mind on what it is you are doing as you pray. The last technique that I really want to at least mention is, and this is not typically associated with Christianity, though it should be more so, yoga. Typically, at least in the United States, yoga is seen as an Eastern practice and a specifically Hindu idea, but many Christian mystics have taken over the practice of yoga and developed it into a Christian prayer technique and put prayers in it, allowing you to stretch your body and to be very deliberate, both body and mind, in your prayer life, and learning how to connect to God through the movements of our bodies, and understanding that our body is, like our mind, a gift from God and something that can connect us to God. Even though we say God is spirit and not corporeal in the sense that we are, though God is definitely corporeal in a philosophical sense, even though we understand that, our body is still has the potential to connect us to God. And so yoga can actually be used to connect us to God if used appropriately. As with a lot of exercise, it is about using our body to focus our mind more acutely on the subject at hand. We in the evangelical or mainline churches, Protestant churches, need to do a better job about being intentional in all of our prayer poses, not just what we might call a conventional childish prayer pose of sitting quietly with our head bowed and our hands folded. Even though that is a wonderful prayer pose, because it teaches me to focus in on my mind, but to branch out beyond that to other intentionally worshipful positions. So this week, as you are dealing with your life and trying to incorporate new times of prayer and new techniques, think about how you can incorporate something like a prayer walk or a new pose or even something like yoga into your prayer life so that you can connect more fully and richly to God.